You've tuned into Stranger Than Fiction News, broadcasting live from the dark side of the planet. This is the most censored broadcast on the internet, ladies and gentlemen. But we're going to continue with our public service announcement, despite how terrible it is. You've heard of the death ships docking into the major U.S. cities. We're getting numerous reports of these death ships arriving, and we're getting more reports that cruise ships will be converted into death ships. Of course, they're death ships, ladies and gentlemen. It's just like the cell towers. They're not cell towers, they're death towers. Just like the cell phones. They're not cell phones, they're death phones. They track you, they spy on you. Anything that uses the word smart, you can substitute with death, ladies and gentlemen. That is the nature of this system. It's a cult of death. They're not here to help you, they're here to kill you. They're not here to tell you the truth, they're here to tell you lies. They're not here to help you, ladies and gentlemen. They're here to sabotage, plotting your demise. That's who these people are. You can tell them by their fruits. It's as easy as that. Of course, they've let this virus in. Everybody's known for months that this virus is coming, that the death toll would be enormous, that action must be taken sooner rather than later. And instead of doing what should have been done, they did everything that you shouldn't do. They ignored the situation. They pretended like it was no big deal. It was just a flu, a hoax. Ladies and gentlemen, look at them now. Look at them now. Where's the video guy? Oh, here's the inside of these ships. Nothing is purposed for a bioweapon for 24/7 contamination, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, this bioweapon works around standard containment. It works around the tests and the like. It's not by accident their tests didn't work. And it's not by accident that hospital workers are being infected, even though they're wearing the protective gear. This thing works around standard containment. And nothing is set up for a 24/7 infection of this nature, ladies and gentlemen. Where is the video guy? How's everybody doing out there? We're broadcasting live from the dark side of the planet. There is so much news to cover, so many things to discuss. But why not start with these death ships that are arriving everywhere? Another ominous sign of the times, to say the least. We're getting some live footage from the San Francisco Bay Area, Silicon Valley. The Grim Reaper is there. And the body bags are about to hit the floor. Terrible situation. How did we get here? We'll see if we can get into that. Where did the video guy go? Where? Oh, this is just not happening. This isn't happening, ladies and gentlemen. It can't be happening. And yet it is happening. FEMA is in control. It's the Federal Emergency Management Agency. This is an emergency. They manage the situation. And right now, they're coordinating everything under the jurisprudence of FEMA. They're in control. Emergency actions have been declared. In fact, when they did their state of emergency speech. They handed everything over pretty much to FEMA and suspended everyone's civil rights. You just don't know that yet. You're going to find that out rather quickly as things get worse, and they get worse and worse every day. Why don't we cover a little bit of the news, ladies and gentlemen, and talk about what is going on. What is going on out there? How's everybody doing out there? You guys still engaged in this story? If you want to see our updates, be sure to check out our website, stfnreport.com, as well as our Twitter feed, Stranger Than Fiction News. And just a reminder, you don't know people until you've met people like this one on the left. 1 second they're smiling at you, and the next second they're like growling at you. Check out that face. Look at that. Anyways, getting back to the news. Who's got the most coronavirus deaths? Who's got the gold in the Olympics? According to the official numbers now, Italy is number one. 3,400 deaths. They've got more deaths than China. And twice the rate, at least. We'll be getting into the numbers. Coronavirus whistleblower doctor was punished inappropriately by police when they killed him, Chinese officials admit. Very nice. Carnival Cruise Lines offers floating hospitals amid the coronavirus pandemic. Now, how do we know these are going to be death ships? Well, we know a lot more about this virus than what they're saying on television. That community virus load basically acts as a trigger. And had the Diamond Princess been allowed to run its course, it would have wiped out everybody in that ship. How do we know that? We're getting multiple reports of this virus wiping out entire households. Why? Because the people in the house are always reinfecting each other. And we've described the situation. An infected person is like a lit cigarette. And, you know, one person smoking in a room is one thing. 2 people, 3 people, 4 people smoking in a room is quite a different thing. All of a sudden it becomes very difficult to breathe. All of a sudden there's so much virus load in a room due to the amount of people there that the dose you get is so high that all of a sudden you're on the accelerated pathway and you all of a sudden go critical in a few days versus months or perhaps never at all. I think we're going to discover that people that live by themselves, as long as they're not complete idiots, will fare much better with this virus. Air quality is the key. We recommend bagging up all of your scented candles, your incense, your perfume, detergents, cleaners, anything with a fragrance, anything that would be classified as a volatile organic compound. Big words there. And if you can wrap your minds around those words and those ideas, then you'll be much better off. If not, welcome to the Sheeple Club. And you can see why this virus is going to be so difficult for so many people. You know, they're putting on the perfume, the hairspray, they're, you know, lighting a cigarette and, you know, lighting some incense. You know what I mean? Those kind of people. As well as other, you know, factors. We're learning high blood pressure and diabetes is a big factor in critical cases. The Navy hospital ship Comfort will dock in New York City. Obviously, this is an excellent way to hide the bodies. All of the ships look alike. So they just have to dispatch 2 per city And while everybody's sleeping, they just, bring in another ship and bring all the other people out into the deep. Now, you might think to yourself, oh, that could never happen. 2 weeks ago, you'd never think that a lockdown could happen. But it's happening. Everything's locking down. Everything's shutting down. Whether they admit that or not, whether they, want to call it shelter in place or not, and whether they say it'll never happen. Like if you listen to the governor's press conference today, he's like, I'm never going to authorize the lockdown of New York City. I don't know where those people are getting those ideas. Well, they must have been watching this show. But look, it's not the governor that's going to order the shutdown. Hello, it's going to be FEMA. It's going to be the national government. And of course, throughout the press conferences, Cuomo and the like are just begging for guidance from the federal government. Like, oh, we've got this patchwork of, policies, and, one state does this, another state does that. And, we need the federal government. We need our imperial masters to show us the way, to save us like Katrina, to save us like WMDs in Iraq, to save us like 9/11, But they're not here to save you, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously. Otherwise, they wouldn't be rolling out the death towers. They wouldn't be, waging wars in, far off places for oil once again. And look, we're not going to get into the Syria thing, OPCW, what happened to the Kurds, or, just the, catastrophe after catastrophe. But obviously, these people are not here to help. In any case, as far as the lockdown is concerned, it'll be a national security directive. And, the states should really, cling to whatever powers they have left. Initially when New York started taking matters into their own hands and started saying, the CDC sucks, they won't let us test, they're doing everything they can to fuck us, quote unquote, more or less. They actually started doing things correctly. And now they're just begging for it. They're, please send your death ships over here. Please, yes, send us, tell us what to do. Lock everything down. Okay. Yes, Mr. President. And that's when it'll hit, and that's when the body bags will start hitting the crematoriums. People can't get fresh air. They just sit at home and just power clean all day, stressing out, breathing in the fumes of the, the bleach and the Clorox and the like. Hand sanitizer, soap, on top of the cooking. Be sure to ventilate 24/7. Fresh air is your best friend. Cruise ships on the Thames in London, floating coronavirus hospital. So we can already see the plan emerging in other countries. It's like the BBC Building 7 all over again. But yes, these cruise ships, these diamond princesses, are going to herd in as many infected people, and they're going to say, like, look, they're all infected anyways. What could go wrong? Well, obviously, the community virus load is going to skyrocket with this airborne virus, and it's going to kill everybody on the ship. As soon as they start doing a thing like this, the fatality rates are going to skyrocket. And they obviously know this. Ladies and gentlemen, they're not talking about this, but they obviously know this, and it's part of the plan. And they can liquidate, 1,000 people at a time on a ship like this, maybe more. In a cruise ship, it can be 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. Imagine a gas chamber for 4,000 people. You're looking at it. Not Zyklon B, but Zyklon C. Follow the Nazi gold. 15 Brazilian delegates that met with Trump are now coronavirus HIV positive. And, that's what this virus is, a SARS HIV chimera strain, what's referred to as a pseudo virus in the scientific papers. Very, very much standard practice whenever they're trying to research a new virus like SARS or MERS. The first thing that they do is they splice it with HIV and start testing out HIV drugs on it. Literally. It's in the smoking gun in the video description on the ScrewTube page. So either Trump has the vaccine or he's suffering in silence. And, by looking at the cues, he obviously looks fatigued. It could be, the national emergency. It could be the virus. I think it's important, regardless of the cynicism here and, the anger, that, we wish everybody well and, we hope that they succeed. But you can't help but be, super disappointed, from a truther's perspective here on, many different fronts. They didn't lock up Hillary. They let us, they arrested Assange instead. We had numerous Gladio B events with Syria and Iran. And, it was just like overtly in your face, messed up. Like, we're there to guard the oil and the like. And then throwing the Kurds, to the wolves. And rolling out the death towers and not doing anything about the other eugenics programs. And, then there's the whole Epstein thing, the Epstein connection out there in Mar-a-Lago and the like. So Epstein lawyers, Epstein, prosecutor in the cabinet, the Acosta thing. I mean, look, there's a ton of red flags here. We could go on all day. So the question that most people, especially observers, if you will, the question that most people are asking themselves is, who released it? Did we do this, or did the Chinese do this? Did they both do it at the same time? How long has this kind of thing been going on? Have they released any other viruses discreetly and just called it the flu? But you could have a very long conversation about that. And at this stage, there really isn't enough information to make a solid determination as far as who is the most responsible. We know who let this virus in, who pretended to be stupid and pretended like they had no idea what's going on. Even today, they're like, nobody expected a pandemic. Nobody, really. There was, probably a small army of scientists and doctors and, publications like this one that were like, whoa, they were sending out plane loads of people for like 2 weeks into every major city of the world. This is going to blossom everywhere at around the same time. Guaranteed. And they should have been ramping up like production of masks. They should have been setting up hospitals for the surge of sick people. And instead they just let it in like another 9/11. Well, we don't know exactly for sure who released it. It looks like the Chinese released it. It looks like they used the city of Wuhan to incubate it and to spread it around the world. They've got a lab in that city. And, Occam's razor would tell you that, the simplest of possibilities is the most likely one. That, this escaped their lab and it was allowed to spread around the world with the purpose of attacking, a preemptive attack. This is phase 1 of the attack. And we're going to be getting into the latest Chinese threats to EMP our Navy out there in the China Sea. What is it? Southeast China Sea. And that could be what's coming for the rest of America, an EMP attack. That's what's listed in the Project Cypher papers. is that, you know, phase 1 or the first wave is the virus, and then comes the EMP, and, you know, basically everybody's back into the 1800s. And then comes their troops and the invasion, right? So the commies are coming. You're going to want to, you know, get a Red Dawn crew. A Red Dawn crew. You know, now that I think about that, you know, it could be Dawn like DAWN, or it could be Red Dawn like DON, ladies and gentlemen. But the commies are coming. The goon squads are coming, just like we saw in China. Everything, you know, up to now has been a carbon copy. And we've already seen, you know, the first arrests of people suspected of having the virus. And we've talked about the videos where, you know, there's nothing left in Wuhan for the most part. Most people are dead. They're gone, liquidated. And, you know, cities that try to reboot after the lockdown go right back into lockdown because of a resurgence in the virus. So, I mean, you know, there's already like a virus reservoir in every city. You know, a section of the population that's just going to be holding on to it. And as soon as they're allowed to go out again, they'll reinfect. And community virus load skyrockets, and, you know, people drop dead. In South Korea, that's what they're reporting right now. So it's not just China. You know, they're not able to restart their factories. And that's the whole other, you know, angle of this story, ladies and gentlemen, is, you know, what's going to happen to the supply lines? What's going to happen to all the things that you buy at the store if the factory shut down? We're seeing massive factory shutdowns. So, you know, the virus is one angle of the story. There's the World War III angle of the story. And then there's just like basic supplies. After this summer, every warehouse is, you know, by this summer, every warehouse is going to be empty. Factories aren't going to be able to reopen permanently. You know, they're going to have to do it in, you know, shifts like Chernobyl, when they went onto the roof and tried to, you know, pelt out you know, pieces of the core back into the pit. That's what it's going to be like trying to restart a factory. You're sending people to their deaths, and you know, a new massive wave of infections. That's almost a certainty at this stage. And that's what's really going to fuel the crisis even more. You're already starting to see reports that 1 in 5 people are out of work. Those numbers are going to deepen. More businesses are going to shut down, and the free handouts are only going to last so long. So they might give you $1,000 now, $1,000 later, and maybe they'll do that again, you know, by this summer. But they can't just, you know, keep putting out $1 trillion spending packages if nobody's paying taxes, if nobody's going to be buying the bonds. You know what I mean? So there are short-term and long-term issues to be considering here as far as what's going to be happening. And, you know, how many people drop dead from the virus is one thing, but, you know, how many people are going to starve to death because, you know, the supply lines are going to be cut is another thing. And what if war does break out? You know, yesterday we were talking about a news report that the superpowers are arguing amongst each other about whose bioweapon is it. And that brings us back to the question, whose bioweapon is it, ladies and gentlemen? And look, it obviously started in China, you know, according to the news reports. But who let this virus in? And, you know, that's a big deal. It's kind of like who opened the gates. You know, imagine you're surrounded by barbarians in, you know, the medieval kind of ages or something like that. Your city is surrounded, your city state is surrounded by barbarians. And then you get, you know, some kind of dumb shit that comes up to the gates and just opens it up, and lets the invaders in. Who does that? Then people are asking themselves, okay, well, who's at fault here? Is it the barbarians? Well, sure, yeah. But what about the guy that let these barbarians in? Who let the snake in? It's kind of ironic when you think about it. We should almost play that recording. And, it's rather, haunting after everything we've seen the past 3 or 4 years. But what choice did we have? It was either Trump or Hillary, right? What choice did we have, ladies and gentlemen? We never have a choice in the elections. Just like this election, you'll get to choose between Commie Sanders.
And when it got down to the plane is 10 miles out, the young man also said to the vice president, "Do the orders still stand?" And the vice president turned and whipped his neck around and said, "Of course the orders still stand. Have you heard anything to the contrary?"
Have you heard anything to the contrary? Have you seen anything to the contrary in the past 3-4 years, honestly? With the death towers, with Julian Assange, with Hillary. I mean, you'd almost have to wonder if, Donald Trump hadn't worked for NBC. Do you think that guy might have worked for NBC? Can you really trust anyone from New York? That is the question, ladies and gentlemen. You obviously know the answer to that. How's everybody doing out there? Is anybody out there? Is anybody out there? We're just checking on the stream. Looks like somebody's out there, ladies and gentlemen. How's everybody doing? Seems like the beast system isn't allowing our broadcast to reach subscribers. It's fairly typical. Be sure to check out our website, stfnreport.com, for daily updates. China threatens EMP attack, according to Breitbart. Here's a figure that speaks 1,000 words, they say. This is normal lungs. This is lungs on Wuhan supervirus. And as you can see, this section here is the ground glass opacity that they're talking about. Not sure if that's actually coming out. No, right there, yeah, you can see that. Normal, not normal. And it's a progressive disease, so it may not hit you like this right away. It may not hit you like this in a few days. It's a progressive disease, and the quicker the progression depends on numerous factors, but virus load is probably one of the most important factors, as well as the state of your immune system. So bear that in mind every time you use your cell phone and the Wi-Fi and the like. 17,000 people infected in Spain. That went up pretty quickly. 800 people dead. Italy today reported 5,300 new cases and 427 new deaths, raising the total to 40,000 cases and 3,400 dead. So right now, Italy's got about half the cases of China and more people dead. That's a very different picture than what the Chinese were saying, but obviously we knew that by all the reports that we were getting on the ground. Day one of the lockdown, they were saying 100,000 people infected, not 1,000 people infected. And we were getting reports of, all sorts of crematoriums on full blast. So, the numbers are a lie. Everything's a lie. And look, you can understand that simply by trying to describe the situation to your children. Imagine if you have young kids and you're trying to explain to them what's going on right now. Would you really want to? if they come with you to the store and people are freaking out wearing masks, hoarding all the toilet paper. I mean, kids can feel that. Would you want to explain to them what's really going on? And essentially, you can't ignore that angle of the story as far as why the news has been lying to you, but they're always lying to you. And, they let this thing in. And it's happening like this in every country. They're laughing at you. The people on TV are laughing at you. They're watching you, line up at Costco for shopping carts worth of, groceries, that might last you a couple days, maybe a week. And, they're just like, good luck out there. Shelter in place. Here's a story from France. 3 doctors representing a union of doctors have filed a complaint against the Prime Minister and the former Minister of Health, who resigned, early on in the outbreak, and have been accused of failing to take the appropriate measures to stop this epidemic. This is across the board. Every country was in on it. This is a New World Order operation, guaranteed. And, they're going to try and usher in some kind of Agenda 21 beast system paradigm, if you will. And, of course, we should expect cashless society. We should expect chips and further, types of controls to verify that you're not infected, that you've been vaccinated, that you're not a threat to public safety. And they're going to go around, arresting people that are suspected of having the virus. Everybody's been infected. It's just a matter of, how far along are you in this disease? And, they make people think like, 5 days, 7 days after infection is when you go critical. But that is not the case. And, with this virus, you get the primary infection, which usually is an acute infection of the lungs and, resembles, severe flu or pneumonia. But then it becomes systemic. It starts attacking your other organs, like your liver, your kidneys, your brain, your heart. And it just gets, the whole and the lungs, and it just gets worse and worse over time. And how bad it gets depends on numerous factors. But everybody's a ticking time bomb. And, undoubtedly they can unleash, certain things in the environment that will accelerate the progression of this disease. And that's why it's important to find out what those accelerants are and, what might put the brakes on it. Nightmare unfolding in New York City, no kidding. Like the movie I Am Legend. 20% of cases are requiring hospitalization. So if they've got 4,000 cases and 20% of that makes 800 people right now already in ICU. Now, they say they got 50,000 hospital beds. So, it's starting to fill up. But this is still very, very early on in the epidemic. As you can see in Italy, they've got, 5,000 cases a day. So we could be expecting here very soon that they're going to get, 800 new people a day that require beds every day. And it'll probably get worse. Much worse, in fact, because they're not going to lock anything down like in China. And, and there's a lot of other factors that are probably going to make this worse in the Western world than in China. And we could get into that, but there's probably some factors in China that make it worse than in America. So, look, we'll just have to see. But our forecasts are still that every major city is pretty much going to get wiped out, locked down, indefinitely. And right now it's, just 2 weeks or 2 months or, till the end of the summer, or now it's 18 months, depending on who you listen to out there. But this is going to be a perpetual thing until they can sell you the medication to, manage the disease. And so I think we'll be talking about this for quite some time, like the next AIDS epidemic. And again, instead of this just infecting or affecting, a small portion of the population, everybody's been dosed with this airborne AIDS, this weaponized virus. Everybody's been bio-nuked by this, ladies and gentlemen. COVID, let's see, University of Wisconsin, COVID team is going to use hydroxychloroquine for all patients warranting hospital admission. So, today you heard in the White House press conference about chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine. And they're going to try and see, if it works. We've been hearing a lot of positive things about it, but there haven't been any large, scale clinical trials. Of course, that takes time, something that we don't really have. But it might be something that you could get right now, through a pharmacy. You might have to, tell a doctor you're going to Africa, and this is, a standard regimen to take before going to Africa to not get malaria. So you might be able to get your hands on it. The side effects are very nasty, and the regimen that's recommended for malaria is, a huge initial dose and then smaller doses for like 2 weeks. And dosage makes, the big difference. We'll have to see, what they're recommending, as treatment for this. And we'll have to see, how effective it is. The initial reports, though, are very promising, as well as, other drugs like this Ebola drug, remdesivir. We're hearing a lot about that. It's been used, right away, pretty much with the first U.S. case in Seattle. Makes you wonder, why they chose that one. But there'll be plenty of time to look at all of that. Quinine, left pick, is very similar to chloroquine. And, one is a natural substance. So you might want to try the natural. We'll have to look again to see where you can find that in a natural food. Asparagus comes to mind, but don't quote me on that one because I'm just throwing something out there. You can look it up for yourself. More reports of hydrochloroquine being used. Dosage here, though, is rather suspicious. Obviously, 600 milligrams for 6 days, and that's usually kind of occult vernacular. But we'll have to see. For the first time in the modern history of the United States, the Department of Defense has been given standby orders to ensure the continuity of government in response to COVID-19. And, everybody's been infected. In theory, everybody's a ticking time bomb. And what people need is fresh air, a pristine environment, and not to get reinfected with this airborne STD, if you will, before they can clear it out of their system. And that's essentially, the situation. It's like everybody's got airborne chlamydia, and you take antibiotics, but you keep getting reinfected by, the people at work. You know what I mean? That's essentially what we're looking at, and people will never be able to come clean from this infection because they'll always be reinfected. And since it's like airborne AIDS, there's really no immunity to it, certainly not long-term immunity as far as what we're hearing right now. And so, we'd like to paint a rosier picture of, you know, the situation. I think it would be easier to pretend like everything is going to be awesome. And that's what people probably need to hear right now. You know, everything's going to be fine, which, you know, could be, but probably not tomorrow or the next day. And, you know, we'll just have to see what ends up being the new normal here. We better continue on because there's a lot to talk about. Everybody should be equipped, ready for the goon squads. Silencer would be nice. And so would a minigun. I'd take a minigun too. So here's a little timeline of the virus. 100 cases January 19th, just before the lockdown. 1,000 cases January 24th, pretty much right after the lockdown. And you could see how it goes exponential. But look at it now. I mean, it's, you know, the numbers, it took basically 5 days to go from 100 to 1,000. And in one day, you know, from March 18th to March 19th, it jumped 25,000 cases. And it's just going to keep doubling, you know, every 2 or 3 days, essentially. But not officially, because officially you've always got the limiting factor of how many tests can they perform in a single day. And sometimes that's 50, sometimes it's 100, sometimes it's 2,000, sometimes it's 10,000. But they'll never report more than 10,000 cases a day because they can't test more than 10 or 15,000 cases a day in a given country. And, you know, that's if you live in South Korea or something like that. If you live in America, you know, if they can test, you know, 100 people or maybe, you know, 1,000 people, you're onto something. Very disturbing footage from the French Congress. And they're tracking to be worse than Italy right now. You know, they're about a week behind. But here during a live, you know, video from their Congress, the girl goes into a massive coughing fit, and it's actually kind of brutal. You know, and they're always trying to, you know, put a smile on it, like it's okay, like it's just the flu. But that reminds us, we got another video of a dude from like the parliament in the Netherlands, and he just basically pretty much drops dead on live television. We'll get into that one. But that's all coming here for sure. Here's some video of the mortuary trucks, the morgue trucks, the death trucks. And at least 10 or 12 were seen at one city emptying out a morgue. How many bodies do you think you can fit in a truck? Right now, we're seeing, you know, all the bodies in wooden coffins. How long do you think that's going to last? Is the question. The Simpsons, once again. Very interesting here in this particular episode. And they're like, you know, how do we create, you know, a phony crisis? Oh, we'll just put out this virus. Oh, two men plowing each other. Highly disturbing. But, yeah, it's pretty much 9/11 predictive programming all over again in The Simpsons. Young people at risk, much higher than previously thought. Here's some survival skills for you, ladies and gentlemen. And, of course, you know, fruits and vegetables just need a little dirt, and they'll grow, as well as some tender loving care. Peer-reviewed study shows that 100% of patients after 6 days of taking the chloroquine were pretty much cured, but, you know, that is going to get a little more intense as far as the definition of cured. Chances are, you know, their virus load is below the threshold of what the typical antibody test will pick up. but the virus is still, hiding dormant somewhere, like HIV. In any case, but still promising information in terms of initial disease management. Is chloroquine something that you can take every day like aspirin? Probably not. I'd almost be willing to say certainly not. Can you use it every time it flares up? What are the long-term effects? Will there be better, therapies at $100,000 a pill? Probably. This was, an interesting video from a London shopping center, like a Walmart, Tesco, or something like that. And, they're just flipping out over there hardcore. And we expect the UK to get hit extremely bad. Interesting, the Spanish flu apparently came in 3 waves. The second wave had a 100% mortality rate. And, you have to wonder, was it something like a cytokine storm? Was it, a new strain of the Spanish flu? But that's interesting. We're getting hit with the first wave, if you will. Or perhaps this is the second wave already. We'll find out soon enough, ladies and gentlemen. We could spend all day on, when the first waves actually hit, what were people seeing during the primary infection phase, what's happening now, is it a relapse, is it a resurgence? We could spend all day on that, and we'll just, throw cocktail words out there for the time being, and maybe come back to it as more information comes out. Amazon warehouse employee in Queens tested positive, prompting the question, what happens if Amazon warehouses begin to shut down? And undoubtedly that's on the horizon. Everything will shut down. Exponential growth every few days. And, numbers, when they get so large, become almost like, imaginary, if you will. 1 million cases, 2 million cases, 1 million dead, 2 million dead by summer. We'll just have to see how all of that rolls out. I think there's a wide spectrum of possibilities here in terms of what happens, but at this stage, you just have to kind of expect the worst, to say the least. Not sure what the video guy is doing, but obviously we're having issues with the video guy. How many of you got your supplies? Can you still get more? We recommend maintaining your supplies, your reserves, and just, try and find a time of day that, there isn't a whole lot of people at the store, that you can go and get, what you need to maintain your supplies. And you don't want to be spending, the whole day, getting a shopping cart full of stuff. But you don't want to start eating up your supplies just yet. You'll probably need them. So you need to find something, a place, some town, maybe outside of your town where things are a little more calm, and the like. Anyways, we'll continue on here. COVID-19 train spotted out there. Coincidence or something else? What is COVID-19 really? Do they spray it around? It's possible that there's been, multiple releases of this virus, and not just people, flying in from Wuhan, but that's another story. So here's the video from the Netherlands where the speaker, the health minister, I believe it was the health minister, maybe some other minister. What was the, maybe it was the prime minister, who knows? But he basically, topples right there on live television. He looks important, he's out there at the podium. But That's, that's another one. And he's obviously getting the best health care, the best of everything. And they must have something to keep, to keep these people propped up for their television appearance. But obviously, it's hitting everybody real hard. And we're getting all sorts of reports, members of Congress, celebrities, athletes, you name it, being infected. So it's going to be a very interesting series as it develops. HIV drug combo has failed as a treatment option, according to the newest reports. Is it true or not true? Italy's fleet of the dead military trucks transport scores of coronavirus victims to be cremated. So, much of the same. We've seen all of this before. Not surprised at all. And I suppose, now would be an appropriate time to talk about where we are in the big picture. Oh, and look at the matrix. Matthew 24, if we can go there right now. And it looks like we're having, we're going to have to recut this on live television, ladies and gentlemen. Seems like the matrix is messing with us, so we're going to have to distract you for a few seconds here. How's everybody doing? Wonderful? Splendid? Better than average? Oh, it's just impossible. This is a very difficult thing to do on live television, ladies and gentlemen. But we're going to do our best. We'll try again. Very important that it's done appropriately. That might do it. Now you can see the full text, which is rather important. And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass. But the end is not yet. For nation shall rise up against nation. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these things are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whoso readeth let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house, neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day, for then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor shall ever be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake those days shall be shortened. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Now learn the parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh. So likewise ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came, and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Then shall two be in the field, the one shall be taken, and the other left. 2 women shall be grinding at the mill, the one shall be taken, and the other left. Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched, and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made ruler over his household, to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Verily I say unto you, that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. But and if that evil servant shall say in his heart, My Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunken, the Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, and in an hour that he is not aware of, and shall cut him asunder and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. There's a lot to be said about this chapter. I think it's safe to say that when the end days do come, it'll look like the movie Independence Day, in a sense. It'll be that huge. And as far as, the end being near, it's never been closer than it is today. The Gospels have been preached in every country. We're definitely seeing abominations in holy places. We're seeing wars and earthquakes and pestilences in diverse places. The sorrows have begun. This particular pestilence happening, in the middle of winter, which makes it all the more grave from a biblical perspective. And so, will we see the full reset at the end of this epidemic, or something close to that, is yet to be discovered. Nobody knows the day, but we're getting closer. And the closer we get to what we're seeing in the Bible, the more intense, things will be. And we'll have to leave it there for this broadcast. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Be sure to bookmark our website, stfnreport.com. By the looks of the censorship out there, it could be any day now before we have to, start new pages again. So we broadcast every day. If you see that, you're not getting a notification around this time, check out our website, and we'll see you then. Until the next time, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this, you are the resistance.